Hi, this is Chico Resch. You are listening to the Let's Go Devils podcast on the Primetime Radio Network.
Happy Devils Saturday! Welcome to Game Day Live, presented by the Let's Go Devils Podcast Network and the Primetime Radio Studios, along with Ann Kruber. Welcome to all fans watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, wherever it is you get your Let's Go Devils podcast. My name is Vinnie Parise, and I'm here with my good friend Short Sky as we getting you ready to watch the New Jersey Devils take on the Minnesota Wild. Short Sky. What a debacle of a game that they are just coming off of against the Winnipeg Wets in Winnipeg last night.
My gosh, you and I were talking about it off air real quick. Holy crap, was that a defensive disaster last night? And talk about the worst luck in one single game, because Timo Meier hits the post on an almost empty net with Hellebuck down and out on a power play, and that was a solid hit of the post. And then shortly after that, or sometime after that, I don't know how shortly after it was, we get that bounce off the backboards, which it turns into Iafalo's second goal. Talk about a bad bounce night. Holy crap, man! So one of the teams I play on is called Bone Storm. And we always say that we get bad bounces. And if that was not one of the most bone stormy game with bone stormy bounces, those are the type of bounces that my team gets at times. It was bad.
Yeah, I mean, you could make a claim that 2 of the 3 or 4, maybe 5 worst Devils games of the season came against Winnipeg. And the Devils are what they are. They're a middling team. They've been mid in the last month. They've been mid in 2020. They've actually been mostly bad in 2025 compared to where they were at Christmas. And they were so good in the first half of the season that they're not going to choke away their playoff spot. What is it, a 7-point lead with 2 weeks to go? They're going to make the playoffs.
It's 8 right now.
It's 8, and so they're going to make the playoffs. It is what it is. How they're going to do in the playoffs remains to be seen. I'm sure most people don't have too high of hopes, but I mean, you see a team like Winnipeg, who just became the first team, I believe, in the NHL yesterday to reach the 50-win plateau.
Yes, they did.
That is correct. I just looked at it. They are the only team with 50 wins so far. Washington will probably get there. And then really beyond that, Vegas might if they get really hot down the stretch. Dallas might. Colorado might. For the most part, though, reaching 50 wins is reserved for the truly elite of the elite. As Nico put it yesterday, they showed us how it's done yesterday. That's what he said on Winnipeg after the game. You come along one day later, I'm sure there will be some fatigue. I'm sure Markstrom will start over Jake Allen, who started yesterday. And then I expect the Devils lineup to mostly be the same, with the exception if Luke Hughes is good to go. I'm sure he'll play. He was obviously missing yesterday, and it was noticeable that he was missing because when you have no Dougie Hamilton and no Luke Hughes, there's a heavy missing breakout pass type defenseman from the lineup. The Wild are good too. They're not, unbelievable like Winnipeg, but they're 41-27-5. They have 87 points. They're a tick above the Devils in the standings overall of the league, being a Western Conference team. The difference is the Devils were far and away ahead of the Wild at one point this season. And actually, if I recall correctly, they have similar seasons going on in terms of really, really, really good in the first half, kind of come back down to earth in the second half here, but are pretty much a lock to make the playoffs. The Wild are in a much tougher division, so that'll be interesting. Yeah. But I'm curious what your early thoughts are going into this game.
Man, we have to come out and play well. And that's the big thing. And I talked about it on the big show the other night. Well, I guess that's almost a week ago now. We talked about it earlier in the week. The defensive structure of this team is terrible. The defensive structure is awful. Iafalo's first goal, he's surrounded by 4 white jerseys and is able to score. That should never happen in a defensive zone. the Devils' defensive play has been awful leading into this, and I think last night was one of the worst displays of it in a long while. So the Devils they have to absolutely pick up that defensive play because it's just they're struggling with it. And it doesn't matter who was in net last night, Markstrom or Allen. No one is going to get the Devils a win, especially because one, the defensive structure was so terrible, and two, the offense couldn't score. So guess what? No goaltender is going to change the outcome of last night's game for the Devils. And that's the unfortunate reality. The Devils lost last night because of their defensive structure, and they were unable to score. That was not on the goaltenders, and no goaltender, not even having Connor Hellebuck versus Connor Hellebuck playing in that game last night. Not even Marty could have changed that debacle that was last night.
Yeah, it was just tough, and no matter how you look at it, you see what Winnipeg has, and you try to compare them a little bit to the Devils, and like that's a team you want to become as dominant as a team like that. I would say every team in the league is aspiring to be one of the true upper echelon teams in the league. You look at their like roster though, and it's just they got a lot of great, but they don't have like one super duper uber star. They don't have a McDavid or a Leon Draisaitl or a Austin Matthews, Cale Makar, whatever. Kyle Connor's got 88 points. He'll flirt with 100. He'll probably come just short just due to running out of time. Mark Scheifele's got 80 points. Then you drop off a little bit. You got Nikolai Ehlers, 62 points. Gabe Vilardi, what a great season he's been. They got him in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. Josh Morrissey, top defenseman in the league, 56 points. Cole Perfetti's kind of exploded a little bit. You look at some of their defensive first-minded forwards, Nino Niederreiter, Adam Lowry, Alex Iafallo, who you touched on a little bit there with his goal yesterday. They're all in the 30s and 20s with their number of points. And they just play a strong, solid team game all around, and Hellebuck's the best goalie in the league right now, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
And the Devils just aren't there yet. The Jack Hugheses of the world, the Nico Hischers, Jesper Bratz, Timo Myers, they're all great players. I do think there are times they try to do too much. And the depth just isn't what it is on a team like Winnipeg, and that's where the Devils fail to compare to a team like that this year. They can't overcome an injury to Jack Hughes. They can't overcome an injury to Dougie Hamilton. Even Jonas Siegenthaler, who's an incredibly important player to them. Markstrom hasn't been the same since returning from injury, so you have the goalie comparisons. It's just there's a lot to work on if you're the Devils, because I do think the Devils' high-end talent can reach the level of Winnipeg's high-end talent. Like, Jack Hughes should be able to have 100, 110 points every year. Same thing with Jesper Bratt.
Yeah.
Okay, well, they have Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele in similar roles. Nico Hischier is one of the best defensive forwards in the NHL, and he scores 30 goals a year in his sleep, and, he's anywhere from 65 to 80 points a year in his sleep. That's Patrice Bergeron-like, in a way.
Yeah.
People are going to think I'm crazy. Bergeron only had more than 75 points once in his career. It's awesome to know that the Devils' future core is like they're there and they're producing. It's just the rest of the team. It fails to even compete with a team like Winnipeg.
I know, and it was so evident last night. Winnipeg was just skating circles around us, and I know last night I talked about trying to not be so harsh on Nemec, but holy hell, did that second goal, that was a bad pass by Pesce, but that was a bad take by Nemec into his skates, and that just led to that's the worst nightmare one of the worst nightmares for a goaltender is the outlet pass goes from defenseman to, from D to D, and it's given up between the blue line and the top of the circle, and it's just like an immediate rush in. It's everything that I'm seeing the Devils do, like I've had happen to me multiple occasions as a goaltender, and I can tell you from the goaltender standpoint, it's freaking awful. It is absolutely awful for it to happen, and there's the structure is just awful, and we're going in tonight with the Wild. I believe they're rested. I believe they had at least had a night off. And who knows? We may see Marc-Andre Fleury. This should be barring a Stanley Cup final matchup, this will be the last time the Devils see Marc-Andre Fleury, which I've got to give the Capitals a ton of credit with what Ovechkin did and had the entire team come back out and shake his hand after the game. That is what a Hall of Famer deserves in his final season, and that is greatness. Appreciating greatness, between Ovechkin and Marc-Andre Fleury, because the constructed rivalry between the league, between the Penguins and the Capitals. The league wanted that rivalry so bad, so they built it. But that is two individuals realizing that they're both in the upper echelon of players in all time in this league, and Marc-Andre Fleury absolutely deserves that recognition. So I would love to see him tonight in net. I used to not like him, but I absolutely love the Flower now. Like, I absolutely love him as a person, as a goaltender, like all of that. And it's possible we see him tonight.
I think it's possible they see him tonight too, because and I could probably look to confirm it while we're talking. But it was Gustafsson and net. Fleury was the backup when Ovechkin led the troops to go kind of rally them and see if they would come out and shake Marc-Andre Fleury's hands. Listen, since the beginning,
it was he made them. He made them come out. It wasn't like, oh, they might come out. He made them come. He's like, no one goes back to the locker room, and that's a class move by the captain as well.
Absolutely. Marc-Andre Fleury has done nothing but the right thing, basically, since he stepped into the league. He's been a wonderful ambassador for the sport, for the goaltending position. When Vegas came into the league and the Penguins needed to make a decision between Marc-Andre Fleury and Matt Murray. Now, in hindsight, the Penguins made the wrong decision, but nobody in their right mind at the time, I don't believe anybody who says otherwise, that they wouldn't have taken the younger guy who just was a pivotal part to 2 Stanley Cup championships over Fleury, who seemed to be the older player. You never know what happens as he ages. Still a great goalie at the time, but not quite what Matt Murray was showing. And then Matt Murray floundered, and Fleury went to Vegas and had a new life. And it's clear in hindsight that was the wrong decision. Yeah, and he goes to Vegas. They get to the Cup final. Exactly, and he's only really ever been on one bad team, and it was the Blackhawks his 1 year there. He goes to the Wild. They stabilizes their goaltending a little bit until Gustafsson kind of showed up and took over. I'm excited to see how this game goes. I hope the Devils show him a little bit of class at the end of the game as well, because he's just been truly special for a very long time.
Yeah, and that's where someone like a Palat should come in, and if Nico isn't already thinking of something like this, that's when someone like a Palat should come in, or even a Kermit. I want to call him Kermit, a Curtis McDermott. Even though he may not be in the lineup tonight, that's where McDermott like kind of pulls Seashore aside, say, listen, you saw what Ovechkin did the other day. This is the last time we see him. Like, this is a class guy, because that to me is like the type of player that McDermott is. The type of player that Palat is. You can say what their play on the ice is, totally put that aside. That's the type of I think presence that those two in particular would bring to that the Devils locker room. Brett Pesce to a degree as well. But I'm kind of hoping that the Devils do something very similar tonight, because he deserves it. And especially if we play him, win or lose, you got to give that guy a ton of credit. Plus, he also wears a great number. And I am fully in support of the Flower and the number he wears, just because it's been my number for as long as I've ever played.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very funny. It's a good number.
It is. And it's Marty's first number with the Devils too, by the way.
That's right. That's absolutely right. What, in your opinion, needs to happen for the Devils to take care of business tonight against the Minnesota Wild?
Tighten up your defense. And put a puck in the net. That's simple.
Is there one player that kind of sticks out as someone who may want to, probably play above their pay grade in order to get this done?
I think not above the pay grade, but paying to the pay grade would be Timo scoring tonight.
Mhm.
But I think overall, a defensive team, the team defensive structure has got to change. And I know AJ Visco, who's in the chat right now, knows what it's like to have, defense that's a little questionable. Although AJ Visco played at a time that the team I coached him on, it was all offense and like a little bit of defense. Like we were winning games like 9-7 when AJ Visco was in net for the team I coached. But yeah, it's Timo Meyer's got to play up to that contract, and I think that the overall team defensive structure has to tighten up just completely.
Absolutely. Hey, I love it. Hopefully they're able to kind of. I think Nico Hischier is a very important player against a team like the Wild because they have, a really good defensive structure over there too, and that's how they rely on a lot of their wins, especially without Kirill Kaprizov in the lineup. Got to keep an eye on a guy like Matt Boldy. Watched him play against Washington a couple nights ago. I tune into Washington games now, like their marquee television because of Ovechkin. But watched Boldy a little bit. Great player. Jack Hughes' friend from the development program, obviously. You got to keep an eye on him. I just think when you play against a defensive team like that, a guy like Nico, who's super elite two-way guy, can make an impact in a game like that. And I'd love to see him and Timo Meier kind of, come together to lead to a victory today. This would be a big win over the Wild because I think they could beat the Wild. I also think the Wild could beat them too. This is one of those, they're very similar, very much looking to the future to address some things in different ways type of teams that'll probably make the playoffs this year and lose in the first round. So we'll see how it goes. I need everybody to get their predictions in the chat right now as we get ready to wrap up the program today.
There have been a couple of predictions sprinkled in as we've been going, but everyone throw those predictions back into the chat. And I see people talking about Dawson Mercer. I caught some of the post game last night, and Dawson Mercer got clipped up high last night, with his own stick, but hold on. AJ Visco finally responded. I remember Beltran breaking the clipboard over my head for letting in five whole goals against our biggest rival. Going back to last night. Thank you, AJ. That just brought me back. Going back to last night, Dawson Mercer got in hindsight, it wasn't a penalty, but it just seemed the way the Devils game was going last night, like they were getting no help. At the post game, someone asked about Dawson Mercer, and Keefe's comment was like, "Yeah, he's going to look ugly for a while." And it wasn't like the other night against with Kovacevic. It was just like, "Yeah, he's going to look ugly for a while." And I just thought, I heard that, I was like, that's a great answer to that question because he is. He is like he's 100%. Gonna. He took the stick to the mush and he was bleeding and he's gonna have some stitches. He's gonna look ugly for a while. I love it. Like what a great freaking answer to that.
That is incredible. Hey, I don't mind this whole Keefe being honest type thing.
I don't either.
Kovacevic was wonderful the following game after the he was terrible stuff. And I know
he had a great defensive play, but he also took a couple pretty bogus penalties too.
Against Winnipeg?
No.
The game right after against the Black.
The game immediately after.
Yeah, I forget who they play immediately after. They won. And then they beat the Black. Or no, they lost in overtime. It was Vancouver.
Yeah.
They lost in a shootout. You're right. But
yeah.
That play where he stuck his stick on the goal line.
Oh, that was a great play. That was a great play.
Then someone asked Keefe about it in a mid, how ESPN does the middle of the game on the bench interviews. He goes, "I love that guy." I did admire that. He finds the humor in it.
It's no animosity. Like that's what you do. Like as a coach, you know what you can say to the players, and they also understand. Like it's kind of a heat of the moment thing. I mean, I know that there were times like I'm going to bring AJ Visco back in the conversation. I know there were times that I lost it on AJ because of what was going on, but AJ knew that I was always looking for the better play out of him as one of my goaltenders. it's just that's one of those things with sports. Like, you just know. You just know that you can say some things just to kind of, you're really trying to piss somebody off as a coach sometimes. Like, you really, because that sometimes gets the best out of players. Like, sometimes you just got to piss people off.
It's like in Miracle when Herb Brooks goes up to, I forget who he went up to. Was it McClanahan? It was one of them. And he's like, "Oh, candy ass, I thought you were a hockey player." I am a hockey player.
When he had the bruise, he's like a bruise on the leg
Yeah.
is a lot.
It's a
I had
long way away from the heart. Yeah.
the heart.
And the
Yeah, it's nothing
doctor's
like
like,
that.
"Is there
Yeah.
any risk of re-injury?" He goes, "No, he will just be completely uncomfortable." And then that's when he
Yep.
like knew it was okay to go push his buttons, and then he comes out and freaking goes
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah.
Thought that was really good. And that's very true. There's some truth to that.
You got to push buttons as a coach. Like, you got to know, but that's a good coach knows what buttons they can push and what buttons they got to stay away from.
Yep.
And that's what a good coach does. And we don't see the relationship between the coach and the player off, at practice, off the ice. We only see what we see on TV on the game. And it's those interpersonal connections that the coaches have with the players that know what they can do. And AJ just responded, and I threatened to bench him when we played a game up at West Point at their arena up there in on campus. So yeah, but those are the buttons you can push, and then you know that it's gonna end up getting the most out of a player.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. All right, let's get into some predictions. A-Bads says 3-1 Devils. Steve Engel says 10-0 Wild. Select the Boy says 3-1 Devils. Let's see. That was earlier in the show. We'll move down to when we asked for predictions. Kennedy says 3-2 Devils in overtime. Eddie says 4-2 Minnesota, unless the Devils show me something different. Well, yeah. Joseph says 5-1 Devils. Joseph says Devs overtime 2-1. Selecta I already read. AJ Visco. See, Selecta follows instructions though. Put it in the chat earlier when we weren't looking at them all at the same time. He re-put it in, or she. I'm not too sure. Love that you follow directions. AJ Visco 4-3 Devils. Nick Adams 5-1 Wild. I'm reading the bad ones now because of what the Devils have become. When people were picking the other team like in December, I'm like, all right. Nick says 5-1 Wild. Michael Rossi says 3-1 Wild. Max says 4-0 Wild. Markey will have 30+ saves though. If he has 30+ saves, I think, and they lose 4-0, I don't think anybody would pin it on him. Similar to Jake Allen yesterday. AJ says you threatened to bench me when we were playing up, and that led to your story. That's very funny.
Yep.
Max says after tonight I may need a whole bottle of vodka. Not going to argue there. And Steve Engel says Dirty Devils vodka.
I think, and then Kennedy Ray said that they're gonna pop some melatonin if the Devils play like they did last night. I think I'm gonna take tonight's second period. I think I'm gonna take in tonight's second period from the brewery down the street.
Nice.
Since I am down here at the Southern Studios, I think I'm just gonna go to the brewery down the street and just take the second period on my phone there, and I'll see what happens.
I've done that many times, many times. It's taco night at the Parise house, so I'm going to be nice and full while watching this game.
Nice.
Because I got to work again tomorrow. Blackhawks have Utah. It's going to be a wild, crazy day. It's going to rain, bad weather. We're almost done with the regular season, and then we'll move into the postseason. So I'm excited about all that. I hope everybody enjoyed today's show. I hope you enjoy the Let's Go Devils podcast. And when the game is over,
Vinny, hold on, stop, time out. You and I did not give our predictions.
That's right. See, I'm not perfect.
Sam Wu almost did this last night, I think, too. Like, holy
Sometimes I read those predictions, and then when we're done, I'm just like, that's it.
It's time to close.
Yeah, but you're right. I need to hear what you think is going to happen in the game.
Yes,
and then we'll do mine, and then I'll read Sam's crazy prediction that he just texted us.
Yep. And I have another prediction that just came off air from off the chat Brooke Amanda predicts 3-2 Devils. She's currently busy. I always pick the Devils to win no matter what, but this defensive structure really has me like feeling some. And I don't want to minimize anyone that's gone through trauma, but some PTSD from what I've dealt with in my goaltending days. But I can't not predict against the Devils because I know the day that I do, the Devils will surprise us. But I'm gonna say tonight it's gonna be. I'm gonna go same as Brooke Amanda, 3-2 with the Devils' victory tonight, and my hope is a Devils handshake line for the Flower, just because
Who
the
is
guy
not
deserves
starting.
it, man. The guy deserves
Just
it,
got word.
whether he's starting or not. Whether he's
No, of course.
even from the bench, he deserves it.
Yep.
By the way, before you give yours, Jim Norton just predicted 3-2 Devils, Timo game-winning goal. So that's look at that 3-2 Devils victories predictions in a row. Maybe that's a sign, ladies and gentlemen. And I think someone else, Kennedy, also said 3-2 Devils in overtime. So
Ooh.
that's 4. That's 4.
That's 4.
3-2
Pressure's
Devils
on
victories.
for me. Ooh.
Pressure's on for you. Not for
It
Sam
is
Wu,
Jacob
though.
Markstrom versus Philip Gustafsson. Just got word. Super excited about this matchup. It's two guys who made Team Sweden. Markstrom wasn't able to play, unfortunately. But they both made Team Sweden. 3-2 Devils.
There you go.
Had to do it.
Look at that.
I was going to go
5.
3-1. I was going to go 3-1, but I'm making it 5 in a row. And then the great Sam Wu.
Do it.
What did Sam Wu say? Did he say 3-2? No, he said 2-1. Sam Wu 2-1 Devils. A long way away from the 9-1 that he normally predicts. And anybody who thinks we just pick the Devils all the time, you're right in years where they're competitive, because say what you want about the team, they are 8 points up on a playoff spot. To say that they're not competitive would be wrong. They are a competitive team this year. They will end the season above NHL 500. I think if they lose out, they'll still end up above NHL 500.
I think so. Yeah.
That's a competitive team. No, we're not. But they're making the playoffs. They're a team that will be in. I would say that is a competitive team. Are they frauds? Are they pretenders more than contenders? Yes, absolutely. But they're still a competitive team. In years like that, I'm going to pick the Devils to win. And my prediction of the score will reflect what I think of their opponent more than anything. But 2 years ago, the very first year of Game Day Live ever, me and Sam Wu were picking against the Devils every single game, basically, in the second half. Jeez. It wasn't fun to do it in the first half, And, if they were playing like a real bad team, like I'm trying to remember who was real bad in 22 with the Devils. Montreal, let's say. They had the number 1 pick and the Devils had the number 2 pick. We picked the Devils in games like that. But if they were playing like a really good team, I remember picking Philly a couple times to beat them. They weren't competitive that year. I mean, they had the second overall pick. They were terrible. And so when they're not competitive, it's a little more realistic, our predictions, I guess I could say. But in a year that they're going to the playoffs, even last year they missed, but what they missed by like 5 points, I still would say they were a competitive team. They were a bubble team that ended on the wrong side of the bubble.
I still contend you bring Jake Allen in 2 weeks earlier last season, the Devils are just eking into the playoffs.
It's very possible. And, you fix the depth this summer. You get Markstrom healthy. Jack Hughes healthy. Dougie, Luke is taking big steps in the last month.
Defensive structure.
100%.
Defensive structure.
Heischer and Brad are still only 25. Imagine when these guys are 27, 28, 29 years old. This team's going to be rad. So I just highly recommend riding it out in hard years like this. People wouldn't be as overreactive to this season or last year if they weren't so good 3 years ago. 3 years ago season, in hindsight, is looking to be a detriment to the perception of the organization because it feels like they're going backwards, even though everything went right and they overachieved that year clearly.
Yep. And not for nothing, if you're only a fan of the last, let's say, 20 years,
not great.
It's not been great. And I'm down here at the Southern Studios, and unfortunately, where I was at the brewery I was at earlier, they had the Flyer game on because that's where we are in South Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
But I was there wearing my 95 Cup hat.
As
Just
you
because
should.
I like to stick it to the people down here because it's all Philly. So
They
can
would
I
take
hold
our
on, hold on?
history over theirs.
Oh, absolutely, they would. Even though they won 2 in a row in the '70s, they would absolutely take.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, they won big over the Sabres, but like so did we at the beginning of the season.
Yep.
Wait, Kennedy Ray just said, "Can I predict a Nico fight? He tends to get more aggressive as the season goes on." Ooh, I wonder if there are odds on a Nico fight. That would be great.
That would be very interesting. If he gets in a fight, I'm going to reach
Mm-hmm.
out and see what this guy knows that I don't. So yeah, I can't thank everybody enough. Now we'll do it for real this time for watching this show
Yes,
today.
we will.
It has been incredible. I hope everybody goes to letsgodevils.com to get everything you need, drink and crew brew. And after the game that was against the Minnesota Wild, tune in to Devils After Dark, where they will break down the game that happened right before your eyes. Hopefully, a New Jersey Devils victory over the Minnesota Wild.
Mm-hmm.
For Shorts Guy, my name is Vinnie Parise, and for the great Sam Wu and everyone here at the great Let's Go Devils Network, as always, I'm going to say it right this time. Let's go Devils.